Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Alexa and Friends. My name is Jeff Blankenburg, and today I have the good honor of speaking with Atif Khan from our Alexa video team. Welcome, Atif. How are you?
Thank you for having me, Jeff. I'm doing great. How are you?
Great. All right, so one of the things that I like to do when we start these conversations is kind of dig into who the person is. And I like to do this with a couple of silly questions. I know I haven't prepared you for these questions, but I promise they'll be painless. So the first one that I like to ask, especially because we've had so many amazing superhero movies come out over the last decade or so, is to get a feel from you. If you could pick any individual superpower for yourself, which one would you pick? And I'd love to hear why you picked that one.
That's such a great question. There are so many choices, and you cannot go wrong with any of those.
No.
That's the fun part here. It will be really awesome to fly or, have X-ray vision or a bunch of other superpowers. But for me personally, I'm more earthly by nature, and for me, it just comes down to it's not exactly a superpower. It's a skill you can develop also, but just empathy and understanding humans better. It's something that I can use day to day, and then I can also use to help others. That would be just so awesome, getting an understanding of how I can help somebody even before they ask for it.
That's interesting. So there have been a couple of other people that have asked for empathy. We've been doing this show. I think we've got to be coming up near 50 guests that we've had on this show at this point, but only a couple have mentioned empathy, which I really like. I think that is if there are superpowers amongst humans, that's probably one of them anyway, because there are a lot of people that don't even understand empathy necessarily. But I wonder, especially in a supernatural world where superpowers actually exist, I wonder how different is empathy from mind reading?
Good question, right? And you can there's some amount of mind reading, but then also it's so human when you talk about empathy, and you gotta be human to really understand that notion. Mind reading can have its own interesting uses and consequences as well, right? Then you got to have your heart in the right place to use that superpower correctly. That's a super interesting question, though. I feel like they are connected, but they're also different, just because of the human nature and human emotion involved.
For sure. And I think that across any of these superpowers, I think it's always interesting to understand how people would use them for good. Because I think when we describe superpowers, whether that's the ability to fly or be super strength or whatever it is, it's always really clear and obvious how you would use that for evil. Like if I could fly, or if I could see through walls, or if I could transport, like I would break into bank vaults, and like there's a lot of really interesting applications.
Yes.
But I think sometimes it's very hard to describe how you would use a superpower for good. And I think empathy is one of those things for sure. It's about caring for and understanding the people around you in a way that helps you serve and support them. And I like that.
Totally.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll move past superpowers. The second question I have to lay out a bit of a scenario for you first. And then I'll ask you to make a choice. So I want you to imagine you're walking down a busy, crowded city street. Maybe it's downtown Seattle near our headquarters. And you know that you're meeting a friend at a restaurant that happens to be one block over. And so your option is you can walk all the way around the big city block. Maybe you're walking around the Day One building. Or you see that there's an alley. And so you decide you're just going to cut down this alley. It's a brightly lit day. There's no suggestion that there would be any danger or crime. So you decide to walk down this alley. You can see the restaurant right through. And as you get about halfway down, at the end that you're heading towards, you notice there is a giant horse-sized duck that emerges from that end of the alley. So imagine a very, very large duck. And he does not look super friendly. And like any human might do, you use your power of intuition and empathy to say, I don't think I want to go that direction. And you turn around and head the other way, only to be encountered by 100 duck-sized horses. So a bunch of very, very small horses. Yeah. So they also look a little aggressive and mean, and you know that you need to now get out of this alley somehow. And there's no option to go up. So if you have to choose a direction to go, which one do you pick?
Neither of them are friendly options,
Not
I'm
necessarily
assuming.
friendly, no.
Okay, wow. Um, this is where I think I should have picked a different superpower. It's really, really handy, right?
Yeah, that's possible. Now's
Yeah.
the time for invincibility.
I think it will be fun to trample bunch of, we are talking about a hypothetical here, so I don't want to harm anyone.
Of course.
Over the duck-sized horses, but I'm also tempted by taking my chances on the horse-sized duck.
The big duck.
Yeah, and ducks don't move that fast, unless they are flying, obviously. So there may be a little higher probability to get past that. Now, I may not come out, in one piece on the other end of it. I'm willing to take my chances.
Yeah. So I feel like there's the opportunity to just get a good running start, maybe try to plow your way through all those tiny horses, but horses bite and they're mean and they can kick.
Yeah.
And there's a lot there. But I always describe to people, I imagine being able to find my way onto the back of the giant duck. And maybe he takes off and starts flying. And that sounds like an adventure I want to sign up for.
Yeah, totally. Sign me up as well.
Yeah. So thank you for humoring me with those silly questions. The thing that I really want to get into, and I think the thing that our audience enjoys a whole lot, is hearing kind of what your origin story is, to go back to the superhero thing. I'd love to know about, where you came from, where you grew up, where you went to college, and kind of what led you to the role that you're in today. And then once we get there, I'd love to talk a lot about what your team is doing today and kind of what you guys are exploring. So I'd love to hear that.
Sounds good. So I grew up in India, a very small town, and all of my education was in India. I did get a graduate degree in computer science, and my starting point was as a software engineer, and that's who I am at the heart of still. And just gradually working from being a software engineer, acquiring skills. I moved into doing architecture work, then moved on to do enterprise level architecture for whole enterprises. From there into tech strategy for enterprises. And then I took a pivot and worked in infrastructure for a while. So network engineering, hardware infrastructure. And then again, decided to move back. I wanted to get back to more customer facing and direct to consumer side of problems. Went back to e-commerce, retail, and made my way to Amazon. But really, a lot of different functions along the way, different skill sets that I had to acquire along the way. And I've been very fortunate to have those opportunities and just go through that journey. The other thing that I would say is that also from the focus area point of view, so I talked about just going through different roles, but even industry verticals. I've been part of a startup. I've worked on the insurance side of things. I've worked for a while doing technology consulting. I did spend a lot of time in travel and hospitality. And as I mentioned earlier, e-commerce, retail. Now I'm working on voice and video, and it's just so much fun to actually be able to, go through these experiences. And every time you take one of these challenges on, you end up learning so much, and just the appreciation of the problems that exist and how to solve for it. Like at the end of the day, I come back to being an engineer. I like to solve problems, right. And the more variety I have in terms of the problems, the more my brain kicks in, and I have the opportunity to think differently. And the interesting part here that I would say, Jeff, is that the same solution just does not apply equally well in each one of these industries. They all have very different requirements, compliance, regulations, and it's just so interesting that you may have very similar problem, but you will have to choose different paths to solve them depending on which environment you're part of.
It's interesting you say that. So there was a new tool that just came out for software developers. It was just announced yesterday. I don't know if you heard about GitHub Copilot. This is a really interesting tool, and it has a bunch of implications across the industry. But the basic idea is that GitHub is running, I believe they're using the GPT-3 machine learning engine against all of the public code that's available on GitHub. And you use this in your development tools. And so now, I just tried it this morning. As you start typing, it starts recommending code snippets based on its experience. But it's not just like, hey, here's a code snippet I found on the internet you might want. It's actually generating the code for you in a way that's meaningful and useful in the context of what you're trying to do. And it's more than just recommendation engine, like I'm aware of the API, stuff like that. It was really, really interesting to me because, and it goes back to what you were saying about how there's different solutions to the same problem depending on industry and context and a number of other things. And it seems like they've really thought about some of that stuff, because not only do they give you the recommendation, but they also give you the ability to jump through its other guesses, right? Hey, that might not work perfectly for you, but this is our best guess. But here's answers 2, 3, 4 through 10 of other ways that we might solve that same problem. And I just thought that was incredibly interesting. It was relevant to me as you were talking there.
I will have to check it out. That sounds super interesting.
And for those of you that are watching that are Alexa developers, I posted a video on my Twitter of me trying it, but it works seamlessly with all of our Alexa development stuff. So as I was building a new handler intent for an Alexa skill, it knew all the syntax. It knew how to fill everything in. I literally hit tab, 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 and I had a whole new handler object inside my code. It was amazing. So I'm really interested to see what the future of development looks like with AI and machine learning applied, for sure.
Oh yeah, that sounds really interesting. And anything that we have always had these scaffolding type of things that take care of like mundane stuff. But this sounds a lot more advanced than that.
And it definitely is advanced, because you can type simple comments like, I need to do this, and it'll recommend an entire function for you that does that.
Right.
It was quite cool. I don't think it's going to put developers out of a job anytime soon, but it is absolutely one of the coolest development advancements I've seen in quite a while. It's called GitHub Copilot. It's very, very cool. It's a pilot, not pilot. It's a developer preview right now, so you still have to go in and like register and sign up to get access to it. But it only took me about 24 hours, so I think they're granting people some access. Anyway. Great. Not the point of our interview today at all. I just wanted to share that because I thought it was super cool. So you joined Amazon, I think, about 4 years ago, right?
Yeah. So let me talk about my Amazon journey.
Yeah.
Which in itself has been interesting. Even if we were to not talk about anything prior to that. So I've been here for almost 4 years now. And I've had two primary roles. So before coming to Alexa, I actually started on the consumer side of the business. And a lot of my focus was on the availability of all of Amazon websites globally.
Wow.
And that came with a very interesting set of challenges. First of all, you imagine the scale at which Amazon operates.
Yeah.
And the constructs or the primitives around availability, reliability, being secure, they are just, yes, they all apply, but they take a very different meaning when you're operating at such a scale.
They do. They do.
And really interesting use cases around how do we prevent like denial of service attacks, or prevent bots that may be trying to do something, or not even malicious in nature, but buying inventory of Amazon sites. So it's a lot of interesting problems, but really complex problems around availability. And as part of that, I ended up starting the reliability engineering practice for Amazon consumer business as well, which is a really mature practice now. And one of the one of the other aspects of this role was that I was responsible for also running from technology perspective all of our big shopping events like Prime Day, Black Friday, Cyber Monday,
This-
Diwali in India, Singles Day in China, you name it. And the orchestration to make all of this happen is just amazing. That at the scale that we can pull this off and almost flawlessly, it's a sight to behold.
Yeah, no, I think that's always been one of those magic unicorn skills that I feel like I've never had. Like I feel like I'm really good at writing applications, but when it comes to really having the insight and the capabilities to think about the security and the scalability of those applications, that is something that I will never consider myself an expert on. Maybe no one does, but it's a really hard problem, and I think that's one of the things that is really challenging sometimes at Amazon, is because the moment your application is live, it has to be at scale and reliable on day one,
Yes.
forever.
Yeah.
Very, very interesting problem. And reliability engineering is a incredible challenge. So that's quite a place to have come from, for sure.
And it's a super interesting space because you learn something new every day.
Yeah.
And every failure that you encounter teaches you something new that you can apply immediately into the next problem. So that was my entry into Amazon, and then what I wanted to get back into was again product development, building products, getting to more direct to consumer side of the engineering. And that's when I started to look at Alexa. And Alexa has always been something that I've been fascinated with. Just the power of voice and being able to do things just with your voice has always been an amazing thing for me. And then actually using your voice and in being able to do day-to-day things that previously we wouldn't even imagine that would be possible with voice. So that's what brought me to Alexa, and I'm part of Alexa Video, where we primarily focus on how do we use voice to improve the experience for customers to consume videos, and we'll talk lots more about videos, I'm sure, but
Yeah.
it's such a fascinating area.
It definitely is, and it was one of the first interesting problems that I was introduced to when I first came to Alexa almost 5 years ago. I can't believe that my 5 year, I'm going to get the fancy orange badge at Amazon coming up in September, which I can't believe we're already halfway through this year, but September's coming quickly.
Yeah.
But it was one of those interesting problems where when you say something like play Ghostbusters, right, just as an example, do we mean the soundtrack?
Yeah.
Do we mean the audiobook, which might exist? I don't know if it does. Or do we mean the movie? And then within that, which movie? Because there are multiple named Ghostbusters. So it's a really compelling, challenging problem. And I'm very interested to kind of dig into all of this with you today, because I think that's kind of where we're headed as we think about the video industry and we think about entertainment and content. What are some of the things that people run into? So before we get into all of that, let's just lay the land for people. So you're on the Alexa video team. What is the mission? What is the vision? What is the purpose of what you guys try to do?
Yeah, so as part of Alexa Video, what we are working on is making the power of voice to and leverage that to make voice the best and most convenient way for customers to discover content, being able to control that content and engage with their video content, and that includes across the variety of devices that you may use for video. So that could be a TV in your living room. It could be streaming devices that you plug into your TV. It could be your mobile. It could be TVs while you're traveling in your hotel, or your laptop or tablet. And and these devices and the variations of that continue to grow. And similarly, if you think about the video space, somebody has to create these videos and serve them. So the other side of the spectrum is the video content providers, and you name it. Every big content provider, we integrate with them. But then there's so much original content being produced all the time,
Yeah.
and being able to rationalize all of that, along with all the music content that exists, all the books that may exist, and make sense of the universe of the entertainment, and do the right thing for the customers on the right device at any given point of time, and doing it contextually the right thing. That's the type of problems that we focus on in Alexa Video, and this is where the intelligence of Alexa also comes in, really leveraging what Alexa is already capable of, and then continuing to make it better.
Now, is there a scope to the type of video content that you work within, or is it all video sources, all video content that you guys are mostly interested in?
So the types of video content that we focus on, obviously video on demand is a huge thing. Live programming that could be over the air, or again through streaming. It could be short form content. So whether that's YouTube or the other short form content that's available, and then short form also starts to get into user generated content versus a curated short form content, which is now being produced more and more by enterprises as snippet of content to consume, or it could be a news story. So there's just such a variety in content when it comes to videos, and we strive to support all of it. Each one of these bring very interesting challenges, as you can imagine, but that's what we are working on.
Got it. So just for clarification, only because someone just asked me this during our office hours event yesterday, are there any challenges or limitations with, I'm going to use YouTube specifically as an example. We were trying to figure out how to play YouTube videos yesterday on, I actually have one of the floating screen Echo Show 10s here behind me. And we were trying to, now I'm not an avid user of YouTube on an Echo device. I use it all the time right in a browser on my PC, on my phone. But it wasn't clear or obvious how I could start navigating or consuming content from YouTube. Can you speak to that? Like, what is the approach someone would take if they want to do that?
Yeah, so if you have, for example, an Echo Show, you can just say, Alexa, search for comedies on YouTube or whatever you may be interested in. And that will land you into the YouTube experience. And then you can just continue to use your voice to find content. And once you find content, you can go into playback of it. And the experience is a little different depending on the device. So on Echo Show, you have to go through the search, and then you have to manually go into playback. But for example, if you're on Fire TV, once you ask Alexa to open YouTube for you, then you can continue to just explore using your voice, and you will stay within YouTube experience, and you will directly go into autoplay of the videos, and that personally for me, that ends up sucking a lot of my personal time when I'm watching YouTube.
YouTube is a never-ending pit of entertainment. Pit is the wrong word, but it's there's no stopping. It's a web, right? You can just continue splintering out into video after video. I feel the same way sometimes about TikTok. It's just amazing the amount of content that's being produced. I know there was a number, and I don't know if you have any insights into this, but I know there's a number that was produced a couple of years ago that said the amount of content, I think this was 2019, the amount of content that will be produced online in 2019 will surpass all the content that's ever been created in the history of humanity.
Not surprised at all.
It just blows me away to think about that. I mean, obviously, we didn't have the mechanisms and the distribution that we have today, and the content creation is just now so easy, right? To be able to record a video or photos or write blog posts. But But to think, it wasn't even just content, it was the amount of information generated in 1 year was just remarkable. And it blows me away. And you are stuck solving the problem of how do I surface the right content to the right person at the right time. So how have you seen the technology in this space kind of evolve as you think about trying to solve that problem?
Yeah, a really good question. So the space that we work in obviously has a lot of moving parts, and as I mentioned earlier, Alexa, we are trying to leverage Alexa's intelligence, and as part of working with Alexa and actually making Alexa better, there are a lot of things that have changed and continue to evolve over a period of time. So you think about when you're talking to Alexa has to understand what you're trying to say.
Mm-hmm.
Then Alexa has to rationalize and really try to not just take your speech and turn that into text. Try to make sense of like what you were really intending to ask for. And once you've gone through it, then how do we fulfill that ask? And all of these things have their own very complex systems in place, and a lot of this uses machine learning, and those continue to get better. We are consistently learning, whether both improving our understanding of the spoken language, as well as are we doing the right thing for the customer. Right? If we understand correctly and we did something really bad, then that wouldn't be any fun. So that's like one part that just continues to evolve, and gets better over a period of time. The other thing is, if you think about it, the number of customers that use Alexa across a wide spectrum of devices, the scale at which now Alexa operates, that brings its own challenges. And if you think about it, like every software goes through this evolution. You start somewhere, and you deliver simple functionality, and then you continue to add and add and add, and at some point you run into scalability challenges, and your architecture just needs to get more sophisticated to be able to handle these types of problems. So a lot of focus on performance, scalability, availability, like those continue to be the things that we work on, and these result in very significant architecture changes that we work on all the time. The other part about Alexa, what differentiates Alexa is the personality of Alexa, and so beyond all the technology, just Alexa's personality itself is getting. I mean, it's evolving, ever evolving, is how I put it, and making that experience more personal for customers. And the final thing that I would say is really in the video space. If you think about the video space, there's last 10 years have just been not evolutionary, like revolutionary. Pretty much every single TV that's sold today is a smart TV or a connected TV. Streaming is such an ubiquitous thing that if you just go back to like 2010s, we were still relying on the set-top boxes to get most of our content.
I think many people still are. I know, at least for my parents, my in-laws, I've tried to push them to streaming, and that they have a Roku or they have a Fire TV stick or something like that, but they still have a set-top box because they want a DVR. And I'm like, but you don't need a DVR anymore. You can on-demand everything. And they're like, no, we want to record ourselves. I'm like, you do you, but that's not my world.
Yeah, totally true. And as you mentioned earlier, just the amount of content that's being produced, it's night and day. Like even we don't even have to go back like 10 years. You can just look at over the last 5 years, or even last 2 years. we are seeing step function changes in terms of the content being produced and the original content that's being produced that's not just the short form variety. The TV shows or the movies, and there's just so much variety to choose from without ever having to leave your home. You can sit and just binge watch.
Yes. Yeah, that is very true. And I think that's been a real challenge for people through this whole pandemic is the draw. I mean, we're all at home, right? So all of the entertainment options that I have for myself when I'm home, not at work, those now exist all the time because I'm at home all the time. And I see this in my children too, right? I have a 13-year-old son who loves video games, and once school started being a thing that he did at home, it was so hard to get him to separate the idea that like, no, you're at school right now. It's not time to be on the Xbox. It's time to like work on your multiplication and algebra. So I think that's got to be really hard for people because we're at this like golden era of content creation. I mean, there is a new amazing television show that seems to come out every week. And my wife and I love to watch interesting television shows. So it's definitely a challenge for sure.
Yeah, and the boundaries between devices like a gaming device or a laptop, like or your TV, like those are beginning to blur as well.
Very much.
Like we are pretty rapidly moving towards any type of content being available on any screen.
Right.
And good luck in that scenario to have school from home and being able to separate games and schoolwork.
Yeah.
It's a screen at the end of the day.
It is very much. And that's the thing is you're like, go upstairs on your computer in your room and do your homework until you realize that that's also like a fully fledged gaming machine that you can do all the things you want on, right?
Yeah.
All right. So let's shift our focus back to video, as fun as it is to talk about all these other things. And I'd love to get your view on the future. Like, where do you see the video industry headed? How does Alexa Video fit into all of that? Like, if you can help me just understand, kind of what your perspective on that is, it'd be great.
Yeah. So as I mentioned, streaming has just been such a game changer in the video space, and what that has resulted in is just change in customer behavior. Right, content is available all the time with you. Everybody carries a phone with them, and you can pretty much get to all the content that you will get to on your TV on the go now, and that shift in customer behavior is just incredible, and I see that trend continuing to grow. The other big thing is, and I mentioned binge watching earlier as well, is gone are the days when you watched an episode, waited for another week to get to the next episode. Now the whole season is for a TV show is released all at once, and you can binge watch all of that in a single night, and then move on to something else. And if you think about it, like the anticipation of like watching an episode, waiting for another week to get to the next, I mean, it's just changed now. And for me personally, having to wait on a week by week basis to get to the next episode of Mandalorian, as an example,
right,
was such a long wait.
Yeah,
So used to
now with a lot of shows. I'm struggling with Loki right now. I won't say anything about it, but I just watched the 4th episode on Wednesday, and it's like I gotta wait a whole nother week to see it. Come on, let me know what happens.
Yeah, and then the other big shift that we saw, and I think this is going to stick as well as with the COVID-19 and the lockdowns that ensued after that. As you mentioned, also just being at home and having all of this content available, the content consumption just went up, and yes, we will get to a new normal, but that new normal will not look like what it was before the lockdown. So the more I think about it, the more I see that content is everywhere. and um, and new content is coming up every single day. And the way I think about this space is like this is where Alexa really shines, because it's really hard to keep track of all of this content being produced, and even know, like, what should I watch next. Um, it's easy to know about one or two things that you want to watch, but you're also binge watching. So you're done in 2 days or a day, or depending on um, how much of a binge watcher you are. Um, what do you watch next? Um, and it, and that's where I believe that Alexa can actually rationalize your video content universe, right? And pick something for you that you will really be interested in. Or a lot of times, what happens is that you want to watch a show or a movie, but you don't know, out of like 5 streaming services, like where is it
Right.
available. Um, so it's something like a spearfishing, just asking Alexa, play, and Alexa will know exactly where to play it from, or just ask for recommendations, and Alexa can find you something that you will like. So that part is where I see that we'll continue to see evolution, because the content creation is not going to slow down. The consumption is not going to slow down.
No.
But we want to also make sure that for our customers, like they are able to really enjoy their time consuming the content rather than searching for it.
Right. Yeah, I think that's a meme that tends to go around, is that my favorite show is just flipping through Netflix for an hour and a half and picking nothing. Right. Like I think that's the real struggle that humans have, is there's just so much that sometimes it's hard to make a decision about what it is I'm willing to commit my time to watching.
Yeah.
I totally identify with that for sure.
We all do. I would spend a lot of times just searching for what to watch, and it's so much easier just to ask for it.
Yeah. All right. So you've been on the video team for quite a while. Like you said, you've been at Amazon for 4 years. When did you join the Alexa team?
So I joined the Alexa team in 2019. So now I've been with Alexa for close to 2.5 years.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, I think the thing that I wanted to ask you, I just wanted to understand what your scope was on the Alexa team, because oftentimes these realizations come after you've been on the team for a little while. But what has surprised you most about Alexa's role in video? Because initially when we thought about the first Echoes, the idea of a screen wasn't even something that we had considered, right? It was a voice only microphone speaker kind of device, and then we slowly came out with some Echo Show devices. So it's very interesting to me to think about the evolution of something like video growing into all this. So what's your perspective on that?
Yes, I wouldn't say surprise. It's just been my learning, coming into this space, and I would say that I didn't fully appreciate the complexity that came with the video space until I started to work in this space, and really start to dig into the content universe, the universe of the devices, and the universe of Alexa on its own, and marrying the three together to create experiences that really turn into a single question or an utterance from customer, and making sense of all of it, and in the complexity that we have to work with to make all of this happen and seamless. That's the part that has been challenging, but it's also fun in a way, because you're having to solve for hard problems here. So in terms of surprise, I would say that I didn't fully appreciate the power of voice that could be applied to videos, and the complexity that entails in solving for that problem. And the more I get into it, the more I discover, and I learn every single day. Where the next bottleneck is, or where the next improvement needs to happen to achieve the next step function change in the functionality.
Awesome. Yeah, I think you're definitely going to see that as you go. So are there, let's see, are there big challenges? I mean, obviously that individual voice challenge is a tricky one, but from a technical perspective, what are some of the things that you as a team overall are really facing?
Our biggest headwind, I would say, is just having the capacity to do everything that we want to do, and there's just so much we can do. We are still very early in our journey in terms of using voice for video consumption and discovery, and there's just so many things we want to do, but where we run into all the time is that we don't have enough talent, and hiring is a huge challenge for us. So we are, we are hiring pretty much round the clock through the year, year over year, because we just need more and more talented people. Like that's one of the biggest headwinds. The other, I would say,
before you get beyond that. So you're saying everyone that's watching or listening right now should apply to be on the Alexa video team. You need those people.
Of course.
Awesome. Well, here, just as a side note to that, I do have a URL I can put up on the screen. If anybody would be interested in that, I know that we've been sharing some links in the chat, but you can also go to alexa.design/entertainment-jobs and find a whole list of the opportunities that are available on our Alexa video team. So make sure to check that out, alexa.design/entertainment-jobs. And you can find that there. But all right, so that was your first challenges. You don't have enough people. We need more people with big brains that can solve some really hard problems. What else you got?
Yeah, the other big thing for us is that most of the times we are working on something completely new that does not exist yet anywhere. And what that means is that we cannot rely on previous data or customer anecdotes, and that results in us working on and trying to figure out what would be the best thing we could do for customers, and working back from it, and that may result in a pretty significant architecture changes that we need to make, not just within our own systems, but just working with other Alexa teams, and very broadly. And this is a challenge, but this is the fun part also, to work on those problems, being able to solve, and then being able to put it in front of customers so that we can start to get first set of feedback from customers, right. And then the learning kicks in, and making those experiences better. But the ambiguity and the complexity, it's an ongoing challenge that we work with, and we welcome it. I mean, that's what keeps the job fun.
Right. I think that's one of the things that I see consistently across the people that work at Amazon, is that they are the ones looking for the hard problems. I think that's a really awesome culture and place to be, is when it's very easy to work at a company and try to avoid the hard stuff. And I consistently see that with you and with a number of other people that I've met across Amazon. Everybody's looking for, how do I solve the hard problems? And I absolutely love that. So that's awesome. And for all of you that are considering a job change, or just looking for a new opportunity, if you're looking to solve hard problems, this is certainly one place you can go look for that. And I know that Stacy is in the chat rooms right now posting links that you guys can click on. But to find that job link, it was alexa.design/entertainment-jobs. All right, so speaking of that, for the people that might be interested in trying to join your team, let's talk about the tools. What are you guys using? What are the languages? What are the technologies that you guys use on your team there?
Yeah, so we predominantly use pretty industry standard programming languages, frameworks. So Java, JavaScript, Python, React, React Native, Android, things that large population of developers use across industries and different companies. In addition to that, all of our systems are built on AWS, and we use a lot of different AWS technology. Going from the basic building blocks of whether that's EC2 or containers to eventing systems, Dynamo database, Elasticsearch, machine learning, so SageMaker, which is what we use quite a bit for our machine learning models. So beyond just programming languages and the AWS building blocks, our work spans across APIs, services, machine learning, and in large scale is search capability, indexing, dealing with large set of data, and obviously, all of this is, again, on AWS, cloud-based, scalability, building for scalability, building for reliability, so that our customers are always able to enjoy the experience.
Got it. All right. So one question we got a little earlier in the chat that I think might be relevant now as we're talking about using AWS services and some of the ways that you guys think about scalability. If someone was building something and they had a video that they wanted to be able to serve up to the world, what would you recommend to them as the service they would use to host it? And if you think about something like CloudFront or some other caching service, how do you generally think about recommending to people to make their content the most readily available in a scalable way?
Yeah, the easiest way with AWS will be to host your content on S3.
Okay.
And it's super simple to create an S3 bucket, upload your content, and then S3 can directly serve that content also, depending on how what type of audience you're trying to reach, and that's when then you can start to look into very simple services that AWS has. Like you can build your full-on websites without writing any code, and have the links point to S3 bucket for videos. If you want to reach a really broad audience across geographical regions, then you start to look at CloudFront and the CDN capabilities, and that will bring edge level caching for you. So it's a pretty powerful building blocks that you can use and not have to write a single line of code. Being able to configure a few of these services, connect them together, and I think you can go really, really far without writing a single line of code with some of these services. And as you start to get sophisticated, that's when you will start to bring in more things. For example, now going from uploading a single video, you want to build a full library or catalog of videos, and have your own web players as an example. That's when then you will start to get into actually thinking about what do I want to do? I need a database in that case, or I need to index my videos so that I can allow for search, and that's when then you will start to look at Elasticsearch type of technologies. But there are so many of these primitives that exist with AWS that, again, with investing very little of your time and writing software, you can get really, really far and have a pretty reliable and a scalable system.
That was a fantastic answer. So one, you helped explain kind of the base concept behind hosting and serving video to our audience. But two, you made me feel like I know what I'm talking about, and that is always a good thing for me, because I mentioned S3 and CloudFront as we got into it, and that's my assumption that's exactly the approach that I would take, but I haven't actually done it. So that's awesome to hear from an expert that's your recommendation as well. All right, so we're wrapping up here. We only have about 10 minutes left, and I have a couple other things that I really wanted to ask you. The first one is, as Amazon, we're very customer focused. That's always our priority, is to think about from the end customer, how does this best benefit them? what are some of the customer-facing improvements you've seen from Alexa Video, and like, what are some of the things that have had the biggest impact?
Yeah, so in our space, we actually think of customers as both the customers that use Alexa to discover or consume content, but also our customers are the partners that we work with, who are either serving the content or the device manufacturers that we integrate with to enable all of these experiences. So one of the really cool initiative that we had was something that didn't change necessarily a feature for the end customers trying to watch a video, but what we worked on, and this required, I mentioned architecture a few times. This required us to completely change the architecture and the integration model for how we integrate with our partners, and by doing this work, we were able to cut down the integration time for our partners by 80% compared to what it used to be. And what that has resulted in is that now we are getting much higher velocity of content partners integrating with Alexa. And the net result of that is just broad content selection that's becoming available for the end customers who are really watching these videos. So there are, and that's just one example. We have a lot of just direct to customer facing innovations also that we are working on. But this just it's something that has stood out to me, where we made the difference for both of our customer types. We made it easier for our partners, and we expanded the content universe for our end customers.
I love that. Solving one solves the other.
Yeah,
that's really cool. All right, let's get back to a couple of like fun questions. The first one is, when you think about all this content, I mean, you must be in front of new, interesting content all the time. What are you watching, or what are you planning on watching, or what are the shows that you've watched recently that you're a fan of?
Yeah, so I end up watching a lot of sports, and then either sci-fi or crime dramas. Right now, NBA is on, so playoffs are going on.
Yeah.
I watched that quite a bit, but I'm also excited to watch the final season of Bosch on Prime Video.
Sure.
That came out just last week. Haven't got into it yet, but the long weekend is coming up pretty soon. And then outside of that, short form, like YouTube is a thing that I spend quite a bit of time on, and all kinds of interest areas on YouTube. So that's where I use my Fire TV quite a bit for YouTube, because it's just so much fun to ask Alexa to find anything on YouTube, and I never have to touch the remote or actually do anything other than just talk to Alexa, and Alexa will find me the right thing.
I love this. I imagine your calendar, when you think about your work calendar, there's like, watch 2 episodes of Bosch at like 2 p.m., right? And especially because we're working from home, your family comes in, they're like, what are you doing? I thought you were at work. And you're like, I'm working. I have to watch this. This is part of my job.
I wish.
That's so funny to think about. The stuff that I, especially on Prime Video, that I've been watching recently, my wife and I just went through the entire series of The Expanse. What a fantastic show that is. Have you seen that one?
No, it's on my watch list. It's just there are so many seasons.
There are.
I'm hesitant to get started, because I know that if I started,
they go quick though, and man, it's such a great show. The thing that I really appreciated about it is they had a lot of consultants to make sure they wanted it to be about real space, right? So there are a lot of things that are very, very accurate to what being in space and traveling through space might be like. So that was one, and then what was the other one that I just watched? There was we just finished this up. Well, anyway, another one I'll use as an example is the Fabulous Mrs. Maisel.
Yeah.
If you like a comedy with a little drama mixed in, it's also very good.
Yeah, Prime Video has some really cool original content. Yeah.
It's amazing. I actually got to go up on it might even be the floor that you worked on in day one when we were working in buildings. But there's a floor in one of our office buildings that has all of the Emmys that Prime Video has won, and it was just remarkable to see all the awards and things that they had won. It's very, very cool. All right, so last question before we wrap up here. We have about 5 minutes. What are the things, when we think about advancements, what are the things you see, your vision coming from the future, and what opportunities do you think those bring?
Yeah, the two specific areas that come to my mind are first is just around spoken language understanding, and that is Alexa continuing to get smarter and better, and all of that is built on learning models. And the more Alexa can learn, the smarter it gets. And I don't see that as stopping. Like that's where I see that we will see pretty large improvements as we go in the future. The other part, especially in the video space, that I see it's already beginning to change, but it's going to accelerate, is the convergence of the hardware and software, and the unique experiences that can bring. Think about very highly optimized devices that can compete or even outperform our mobile phones. The way I think about it, like our mobile phones are the standard right now. The fluidity and the performance, and it's starting to get to that level, and even better on your living room devices. We'll start to see a lot of that happen as we look to the future.
Very cool. Well, hey, Atif, I want to thank you so much for being here today. This has been an enlightening conversation for me. I know I've certainly learned a lot about what you guys are doing and some of the problems that you're trying to solve. And if I didn't love my job, I might even jump onto the job listings and see what we could find over there.
You're welcome.
Before we wrap, is there anything you'd like to share or ask people to do before we wrap up here today?
First of all, thank you for hosting me.
Sure.
And if any of what we spoke about today excites you, or you're interested, please do reach out. As I mentioned earlier, we need talent, and if you're looking for a change, give us a shot. You won't be disappointed. The other thing is, if you don't want to work with us, that's okay as well. Maybe you want to build a cool experience with us. So please do go check out. We actually have our integration APIs publicly available, and that's what our partners use as well. So if you want to just build a new experience with Alexa, please go check those out, and either way, connect with us.
Yeah, no, I think that's perfect. Well, Atif, again, thank you so much for being here today. I want to thank everybody for tuning in, and it was a great conversation to see in the chat. But I hope everybody learned a little something new today, and we will be back again very soon. I'm actually taking next week off from Alexa and Friends. I'm taking a short family vacation, but we will be back again in 2 weeks with another awesome guest. So thank you guys all for tuning in, and Atif, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you again for hosting me.
Bye, everyone.